Who did this? Who did this? By Ezekiel Kralin. Email correspondence, May 31st last year. Subject, today's email to my attorney. Time, morning. Begin. Subject, April-May rent check has been cashed. But as you can see, no indication of who cashed it. I will contact the San Francisco Rent Board about this. Hopefully they'll take action, which includes the rent receipt having no signature or anything to indicate the property owner. I presume my 10-month payment from the escrow account has also been cashed by now. Thanks. End. More on Sabrina Spielrein. Time, afternoon. Watson wrote, none of it surprises me. So many, quote, great men turn out to be shits to the women in their lives. Einstein treated his physicist wife like dirt, also stole some of her ideas. So did Charles Dickens. I replied, not to mention Mahatma Gandhi's abuse toward his own wife. Jung's insight and teaching on archetypes are nonetheless invaluable. However, now that I know better that they actually came from one Sabina Spielrein, I will give her the credit instead of Jung and read her writings from now on. I found this lovely photo of her, see attachment, which I will include in my next chapter. Watson wrote, Jung collaborating with Nazis is particularly odious. I replied, some good answers here about that in this article. Did Carl Jung ever collaborate with the Nazis? And here, was famous psychoanalyst Carl Jung an anti-Semite? Subject, my attorney's reply, time mid-afternoon. Begin. Thank you for letting me know that the April and May checks have been cashed. Let me follow up with the landlord's attorney on the check for the trust account, if that's been received and cashed. Do you have a picture of the rent receipt you received? What does it say? So I sent her a picture of my rent receipt, which I did previously, but I guess that eluded her, didn't get through. As for registering my complaint to evictiondefense.org, I posted the following. Property owner is a blah blah realty. My residence is 9666 Market Street, room 205. The building manager hasn't been providing rent receipts for many years and only accepts checks for payment, no electronic payment or other method. But when I recently insisted on a rent receipt, I got one that is not signed or has anything to indicate the property owner. It is a generic rent receipt form with no spot for a signature. Anyone could fill this out. It's not legal. It's in violation of California's rent laws. However, when I clicked on send, the page just turned blank with a wheel spinning in the middle. I finally shut it down after a half hour, so it probably didn't go through. Then I tried the SF Rent Board, which also provides online complaints, but selecting the right category doesn't get you anywhere. After they ask for the street address, instead it loops you back to the page you started with, so I'm glad Magdalena is going to follow up on the receipt issue herself. To sum it up, support for low-paying tenants in San Francisco is abominable, yet the city is considered one of the most renter-friendly in the country, in which case I'd say the bar's set pretty low, signed Zeke K. Holmes. P.S. How can it be renter-friendly when it's so damn expensive? Subject, second message from my attorney today, time late afternoon. She asked, was this filled out by the manager? So I replied, no, it was not filled out by the official manager, Kevin Bond. It was filled out by Cortez Garciac, an assistant to our maintenance man who was presumably assigned by a blah blah realty to collect new rent checks. Hold on, I pressed the wrong button and the text flew away. There we go. Because Mr. Bond failed to bring some residents' checks to the landlord in April and May. But there was no letter delivered to each tenant by the landlord to bring your check to Mr. Rodriguez, just a Rodriguez, Q-U-E-Z, just a sign posted in the hallway and on the front door without the landlord's signature or even his name. Like so. See attached image. Subject. Just sent a P.S. to my second letter to... Oh, and I pressed the down arrow again and the same thing happened. Oy. Subject. Just sent a P.S. to my second letter to my attorney, time later afternoon. Confession. I've tried as best I can, Watson, to not subject this fine defender of the disadvantaged from my penchant for addenda and the like. Alas, I seem to have failed in my mission. When I said new rent checks, I meant replacement rent checks. Mr. Garciak said he's not privy to entering our manager's apartment to figure out where the missing checks are, though probably somewhere in Mr. Bond's unit. So to date, my original rent check for April has not been returned to me. Perhaps it never will be. You'd think the landlord would have made some kind of arrangement to procure these missing checks. In spite of the building manager's decrepit medical condition, he could do so with courtesy. As I said once before, it's a clown show here. And subject, who did this? Who did this? Time, night's gloomy shade. Who did this? Screamed some short, swarthy butch fellow at the top of his lungs, right in front of the entryway to my building. He was pointing at the recently toppled trash bins. I had just crossed 16th Street on my return from Rosenberg's. It was 10:30 p.m., and I was ready to relax with some videos, then crash out for the night. Deke had departed 10 minutes earlier, so I stood at the corner, wary about proceeding any closer. The man was rabid with fury, like he was about to tear the cast-iron gate from its hinges or rip someone's head off should they walk by. He didn't look indigent, neatly attired as he was, in a dark blue jacket and below-the-knee matching shorts, with a vertical stripe on each side, like a USPS employee. Is that Boaz? I thought. Same height. He is our mailman who moved back into this building some months ago after having lived here previously. Who did this? Who did this? He boomed once more, as I tried to discern whether or not he's a resident of Hotel California North. From a safe distance, he then turned around and inserted a key into the lock, at which point I felt safe to approach. Yep, it was Boaz. He turned to me only 3 feet away at this point and glared straight into my eyes, his own orbs burning with a fever. Do you know who did this? Oh, probably some crazed crackhead living on the streets, the usual. I was tempted to retort. Instead, on guard due to his frighteningly aggressive stance, like he was going to punch me out, I replied, I have no idea. To be continued.